Hello and welcome to today's Saturday session on Junior Cycle Home Economics, where we'll be looking at action verbs, exam technique and question analysis based on the action verbs. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook and check YouTube, and make sure to look at all of our past videos. So, home ec is a 50% written exam and 50% practical cooking exam. So the written exam, as you know, is done in June of third year, and the practical cooking exam is usually done around Easter. There are 2 CBAs, however, the CBAs don't count for any marks. However, you do have to do CBA 2 so that you can sit the cooking exam, because it informs you as to what you're going to cook. So the layout of the junior cycle written home ec exam, so there's been 2 past papers so far. It is a common level paper and it's a written paper worth 320 marks for approximately 90 minutes, which is shorter than, say, junior cycle science, which is 2 hours long, but that's because there isn't a practical element in junior cycle science. So whilst yes, it is a shorter, you technically are still doing just as much as any other subject, or in fact even more, because you say a 90-minute cooking exam and a 90-minute written paper. So there's 2 sections to the paper. So section A is worth 80 marks and there are 10 questions, so each question is worth 8 marks. Section B is worth 240 marks and there are 3 long questions with loads of different parts to them. So section A, I recommend spending approximately 20 minutes in total doing these questions. That's approximately 2 minutes per question. Now, if you don't know the answer to a question, I usually will put like a little star beside it and, just move on from it, and then at the end go back and look at it. And the fact that you see the star means, that it'll stand out when you're flicking through the pages, and then just rub out the star when you're done, so you know that you're done. So section B, you should spend a total of 60 minutes in total, and that is 20 minutes per question. So the time plan, there is 5 minutes at the start to read over all of your questions and to put your exam number onto the front page, and make sure to write down your date of birth correctly as well. But it's super important that your exam number is correct, because that has to match the same exam number at which you would have sat your cooking exam. So 20 minutes doing section A, 60 minutes doing section B, and then that gives you 5 minutes at the end to go over your answers and review them. So my tips are: read the question, highlight or underline the key information, which is super important, and if you want you can write a couple of short little notes beside the answer to kind of key words to help you remember and formulate your answer. So you should only write in blue or black pen, because the examiner who corrects your paper writes in red, and then their advised examiner writes in green. So blue and black are the only ones which are permitted. Pencil only to be used for diagrams and sketches. So like in 2022 and 23, there was one where you have to do up a t-shirt and a top. So that would have been, using pencil there. The booklet is scanned, so please don't write outside the boxes. Extra paper is provided at the back of the booklet, where you have to make sure that you label your answers. So say if you're doing question 11B and you run out of space where you write it, then go to maybe the back of the page 18, and write, this is the rest of my answer, question 11 part B, and you continue it. And then where you were writing it, question 11 part B, just write a little star or something, just make it obvious for the examiner. And the examiner has to look at the back of the exam paper before she starts correcting, to make sure that if there is any extra answers, but it's better, okay? It's just easier for you, so that when you're reviewing it at the end, and it's easier for the examiner. So this Saturday session is super important because we're looking at action verbs. So some of you may have heard of these before and some of you may not have. You'll have seen them in questions but not quite understood understand their purpose. So by understanding why we have action verbs, it will enable you to, figure out how much detail is required to get full marks in the question, okay? Because there's such a thing as short questions and long questions. So the short questions are always found in section A, and then the long questions are section B, okay? So these are your exam terminology for short questions. So these are what we call action verbs, okay? When you're given answers for these, you're given short and sweet bullet point answers. So examples of action verbs would be state, list, give an example, identify, indicate, name, recommend. So maybe you could name a fat soluble vitamin, and all you write down there, vitamin D. Okay, so we're going to go through examples of where these action verbs are found in past papers. So the 2023 sample answers, these are all sample answers and my own views, okay? And they're based on the 2023 exam paper, okay? So these are just sample answers. So the 2023 exam question, okay? This one here is question 9, okay? So it's in section A, indicate with the tick, and they've shown you a tick whether each statement is true or false, okay? So you have to put a tick, you can't be putting anything else, you can't be colouring in the boxes, okay? So this one here, indicate, okay? So you can see that I've highlighted in yellow. So when I see a question, I'm going to highlight the key information, because otherwise, if there's too much information, it's going to overwhelm me, and it's also, it's much better for visual learners and for students with dyslexia. So you're highlighting indicate. Indicate, first of all, means to me that it's going to be in the short question. So I know it's going to be a short and sweet, and in this case I know that instead of just giving a one answer thing, it's going to be a tick, okay? So statements is true or false. So vitamin D helps to absorb calcium. Yes, I know that's true, I'm putting a tick. Meat is a good source of dietary fibre. I know that's false, so I'm putting a tick. Vitamin C helps to prevent night blindness. I know that's false, so I'm going to put a tick. Okay, so this enables you to figure out how much information. This one here is from the 2022 question 13 exam question. Again, it says list 3 pieces of sewing equipment you use to upcycle the t-shirt. So my key information here that I've highlighted in yellow is list. Okay, list means it's coming from my short question, so it's going to be a very small answer. Pieces, sewing equipment, t-shirt. So you would have, in the previous part of this, you had to upcycle a t-shirt. So what would you use to upcycle your t-shirt? Well, you could use needles, you could use scissors, and a thimble, okay? Now there's loads of extra things you could have written down. So this next one here is from the State Examinations Commission. This is from one of their sample papers. So again, these will be sample answers based on my own views. Okay, so this is from part of a short question. So question 13. Every young children deserves to thrive. And that's from the WHO, so the World Health Organization. A, part I, name 3 nutrients that are important for a child in the first 2 to 3 years. Part 2, give 1 function and 1 source of each nutrient named. So there's a lot of information there. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight name. Name means I am just writing down something very small, maybe a 1-word answer. 3 nutrients. I know I need to list 3 nutrients, but the important thing is I need to know that it's pertaining to a young child, okay? And the next part then is give 1 function and 1 source of each nutrient. So I'm going to name a nutrient, I'm going to give a function and a source, but it has to be relevant to a child. Now, in this case, they provide you with a table and you fill it in. So I've gone with protein. So that's tick 1 for name. Function, growth and repair. Source, chicken, lentils. Now, this says source singular. However, because we don't have a marking scheme for this, sometimes they could look for 1 source, sometimes it could be 2 or 3, okay? So I'd always put a minimum of 2 sources, okay? So we have chicken, HBV, and lentils, which is LBV. So next one, calcium, works with vitamin D for strong bones and teeth, and that'll be found in milk and cheese. Carbohydrates required for energy, so it'd be wholemeal bread and fruit with skins. So you can see how that type of question is asked. Okay, so moving on now to the next question here. This is from 2022, question 3. So identify 2 ways in which a person's diet can affect their teeth. Again, highlighting this here, identify. I know that's coming from my short questions, so I'm not going to have to write a huge amount of information, okay? And I've highlighted diet and teeth, okay? Now, if I hadn't have highlighted diet, I might have just written down, how can I look after my teeth? I'm thinking of that. I'm thinking brushing my teeth twice a day. I'm thinking avoiding foods high in calcium. However, diet has nothing to do with brushing my teeth, so that would be incorrect, okay? So this is why it's really important to highlight it so that you know exactly what's been asked. So my answer pertaining to diet would be eating foods high in calcium, vitamin D, for example, milk and cheese. Limiting high sugary foods, which essentially damage the enamel and lead to cavities, okay? And that would be, full marks there. The next one here, state. I know that state is going to be short question again, so it's going to be short and sweet. 2 guidelines, caring for the teeth. So caring for the teeth isn't to do with the diet, so I know it's going to be the answer pertaining to, like brushing your teeth twice a day, flossing every day, visiting a dentist twice a year, replacing your toothbrush, I think it's every 3 months, okay? So that would be the answers there. If I started talking about not having sugary foods here and getting 0 marks, even though yes, it does help to look after my teeth, it's not to do with this question, okay? So this is why you have to be super careful and highlight the key information so that you don't skip over it. So this is why today's Saturday session is super important, because you can know the whole curriculum, but if you're not being careful with the action verbs and the exact information that's been asked for you in a question, you're going to lose out on marks that you definitely should have got. So question, this is 2022, question 11, okay? State 2 ways the family could use internet when planning family meals. State, again, I know this is going to be a short question. I'm going to just be writing a small amount of information. I'm highlighted ways family use internet planning meals, okay? So I need to look at basically how my family uses the internet to help make meals, okay, or plan meals even. So for example, you could go find recipes, e.g. BBC Good Food online. You could watch video tutorials. You could order your food online. So there's loads of different ones, okay? So this gives you the amount of information. It's not going to be a huge big one. It's not a state explain an example type of question. Okay, so next up then, this is 2022, question 12. So this one here, column has a new sports kit. So I know it's to do with a sports kit, okay, so that's important. Identify, meaning it's short questions again. 2 guidelines column should follow when he washes his sports kit. So 2 things column should do when he washes his new sports kit. So first thing, he could remove stains, close up the zips so that, they're not hanging out. And get caught in the machine. Sort colours. So for example, there he has white shorts, but his his half slip is navy, so you wouldn't want the colours running in. Empty pockets. Make sure there's no tissues, so that it's not going all over the clothes and all over the washing machine. So stuff like that. So it's very short and sweet. You're not writing huge amounts of information there. So now what we're going to do is we are going to look at exam terminology for long questions. And this is a list that I found of action verbs that comes up the most. Now that's not to say that it's not an exhaustive list. There could be more that come up as well, okay? But these are the main ones. And when you're getting a question like this, you're thinking like a 2-year-old. So you're like, but why is this like that? Why? So this is what you're thinking when you're answering these questions. So your action verbs here are describe, explain, justify, evaluate, critique, discuss, design or construct, distinguish, compare, and differentiate. So if you're describing, it's describe and explain are very similar ones. So you're explaining why you chose something. Justify means to give a reason. So you're backing it up with evidence. Evaluate means you're critiquing something. So it could be, for example, like a food label, and you're picking out information from the food label and you're saying why this is good for you or bad for you. Critique is again similar to evaluate. Discuss is similar to explain and describe. Design and construct usually means you're drawing or making something. So say you could be designing an upcycled t-shirt. Distinguish, compare, differentiate, you're going to be telling differences and similarities there. So describe. What this means is develop a detailed picture or image, for example, a structure or process using words or diagrams where appropriate, okay? So you're producing a plan or model. So explain. So this is when you give a detailed answer to include your reasoning. So you're using the SEE technique. So state, explain, and example. Okay. And essentially you're backing up your answer. For all of these long question action verbs, I would always be using the SEE technique. This is what is going to get you the marks. This is what is going to make you the higher merit and the distinction level student. Okay. So you're stating, explaining, and giving an example. So you're describing, you're producing a plan or a model. Explain, we've done that. Evaluate, okay? So this means to look at information provided and to critique the information, okay? So for example, you could be evaluating nutritional value of eggs. So you're looking at what nutrients are in it. So high biological value, protein, which is necessary for growth and repair, which is therefore really good for, kids and people recovering for illness. Detailed answer again. So state, explain, and example. So when you're designing or constructing something, you're drawing information, but it's super important that you have to label it. So the 2022 and 2023 exams both had, the 22 was to upcycle a t-shirt and the 2023 one was a long top, and you have to be able to draw it and label the parts, okay? Because the examiner is not going to necessarily know exactly what it is, and sometimes it's hard to draw a picture. So you need to, I wouldn't be good at drawing. So therefore my buttons or my flowers might look a bit dodgy and weird. So I'd have to put, an arrow out and I say, this is what I'm talking about. I will go through an example pertaining to this action verb towards the end of this Saturday session. So you then describe what you drew or how the illustration works, okay? So you're not done once you have drawn it and labeled it, you now have to explain exactly what you're thinking, okay? Because it's all good having it, in your brain, but unless it's on paper, the examiner is not going to be able to know. So distinguish and compare. So distinguish, you're talking about similarities, what is the same and why. Compare, talk about differences, what is different, okay? So nutritional labels, this will come up a good bit in. 2022, so we're looking at the action verb explain. Explain the term cross-contamination and give one example of how it can be prevented when preparing or storing food, alright? So I highlighted explain. I know I'm going to need, a good bit of information here. I'm going to need a state, explain, example. So I have to explain cross-contamination. That's my first bit. Now they've been super nice here and they've actually given you a box so you know exactly that you have to explain cross-contamination and then you have to give an example of how to prevent cross-contamination. At Leaving Cert level they don't tend to do that and it's very easy to miss the second half of the question, when you're stressed under exam pressure. So cross-contamination, this is the transfer of bacteria from raw to cooked food. How to prevent cross-contamination, storing food correctly in the fridge, such as raw meat at the bottom of the fridge so that the meat juices don't drip. And I know I have a typo, but in an exam scenario, once the examiner can, understand what you're trying to say, you're going to be fine. You're not going to lose any marks for anything like that. So my next one is from 2022. Again, sample answers from me. So you're going to explain how the design principle of emphasis, and it's in brackets so it shows us that it's important, is achieved in the room pictured above. So I've highlighted explain, emphasis, achieved, and it's going to be in this picture. So when I look at this picture, what stands out to me is the pink and white chairs, okay? They draw my attention as they stand out against all the plain background, okay? Which therefore means that it achieves emphasis. So I've stated the pink and white chairs, I've explained it, and then I've given the example. Okay, but you could have talked about the black chair, you could have talked about the TV, you could have talked how the white sofa stands out in comparison to the pink chairs and the black chair. So it's totally up to you once you are able to back it up, okay? But this question will be super important to use the SEE technique. Now, 2022, question 11. So this one here says, describe 2 benefits of sharing family meals together. So describe, I know this is, a more detailed action verb. So I'm going to need to state, explain, and example. So describe benefits sharing family meals together. Okay, so first of all, this is a sample answer I've put down there. So it could be allows the family the time to talk to each other about their day, which improves their communication skills. You could say there's less food waste as everyone gets together to eat. It establishes good eating habits as everyone eats together at the same time. Now, when you think of an answer like this, as opposed to, I'm going to go back now to an answer like this, okay? So you see the level of detail that is required in an answer that's asking you to describe, as opposed to an identifier, a list, or a state. So the next questions have a combination of your short and long question action verbs in the same question, okay? So they make them a little bit tricky. So this is why I 100% recommend underlining the key information in the questions. So this is the 2022 exam, and this is a sample answer that I have created, okay? So question 12. Colm is a physically active junior cycle student. He follows a healthy, balanced diet and drinks 2 litres of water every day. A part I, design a healthy, balanced 3-course breakfast menu for Colm to eat at the weekend. Now that's a lot of writing, okay? So first thing you'll do, pull out the highlighter or underline with, blue or black pen underneath. So first thing, Colm. I've highlighted active, junior cycle student. So I know that it's a boy, he's active, and he's maybe about 15. So therefore that's, giving me an idea of his, what type of foods he should be consuming. I know he's a healthy, balanced diet. So balanced diet meaning he's taking in 3 out of the 4 food groups. Check out our Saturday session on the food pyramid. This is like really, really informative for questions like this. I know that he drinks 2 litres of water every day. Okay, so next part. Design. So design means I'm going to have to plan out something, okay? Healthy, balanced 3-course breakfast. So I know I'm going to have to make a 3-course breakfast for him at the weekend. Now, the reason I've highlighted weekend is because weekend, he's not in school, so he could be, at matches, and he could be busy enough doing different things. So he needs stuff that are easy enough to eat and aren't going to take forever to cook. So what I've gone with here is orange juice as his first food, okay, because orange juice is counted as a full meal. And you'll notice that I have my stars there, or I have a squiggly line. So you have to put stars in between your courses to be able to indicate that it's a separate course, okay? So that's where the F comes from there, which means the format, okay? But also the fact that I have my orange juice before I have my wholemeal toast, because it wouldn't make much sense if I had my wholemeal toast and then later on I had the orange juice, okay? So you're thinking of the sequence. So the next thing he had was fresh fruit salad with melons, apple, orange and berries, and he had an Actimel fruit yogurt drink. Squiggly line, wholemeal toast with butter, avocado smashed, and a poached egg and a glass of super milk. Okay, so it's balanced because I'm eating 3 out of the 4 food groups. It's formatted. Everything, suits Colm as a active 15 to 16-year-old. Okay, so therefore that question is out of 18. Now, this one here, that's just there to help us remember the food pyramid. This part here is based on what you wrote, okay? So describe. So I know I'm going to need to write a state, explain, an example. Meal planning guidelines. Now, again, they've been super nice and they put a table and they've put 1, 2 and 3, so you have to fill in 3, okay? Planning Colm's breakfast. So when I'm talking about this here, I can't start talking about pancakes because Colm didn't have pancakes for his breakfast, okay? You have to talk about the food which you wrote about, okay? So these are all sample answers that I have written under my opinion. So the first thing I've written down is I included super milk, okay? So that's fortified with extra vitamin D, and Actimel, which is rich in calcium, vitamin D, which Colm needs for strong bones and teeth. Okay, now as he is a teenager and is growing. So first thing I've done is I stated super milk and Actimel. I've explained that it's rich in calcium, vitamin D, and I've, given my example, okay? Next one, I followed the food pyramid by including 3 out of 4 food groups, including the fruit and veg section. So there's all my fruit there, there's my smashed avocado, milk from the dairy section, bread from the bread and pasta section. Next one. All the foods are quick to make and included a variety of colours, fruit and veg, and textures to make it all a more interesting breakfast. If everything was like, the same texture and the same colour, it'd be really, really boring, and chances are you wouldn't want to eat breakfast. Okay, so these are just sample answers. There's lots of other parts you could have included. There's many parts of the food pyramid there within the question that you could have talked about. So you could have decided to talk about protein. You could have decided just to talk about carbohydrates, all right? So that would be a 12-marker question. This again is from the 2022 exam. So it says here, Colm eats a cereal bar as a snack. Below are the food labels for the 2 cereal bars. It says, bearing in mind the healthy eating guidelines and using the information in the food labels above, recommend 1 cereal bar. So healthy eating guidelines mean it's going to have to be good for me, and I've highlighted recommend. So recommend means I'm writing just one answer, okay? So in this case, I decided to go with the honey and oat bar. And what I would do in this case, the honey and oat bar, I would, circle on the actual food label the bits that I'm going to talk about, so it makes it easier. It's like writing down a plan before you write down the part to the next question, okay? Now you could have chosen apple and raisin bar as long as you're able to back up your answer. However, I could not say Cocoa Pops or Nature Valley bar because it's not listed there and on the food labels. So this says justify. Justify means that I am going to have to give a detailed answer. So I'm 100% going to have to give an explanation and explain. So I'm backing up why I have decided to go with the honey and oat bar. So these are my sample answers. So honey and oat bar has more protein, which is required for growth and repair, which is required for Colm because he's an active growing teenager. The honey and oat bar has less sugar, which means that it is healthier as he is less likely to develop dental disease and obesity. Okay, I can't just say the honey and oat bar has less sugar. I'm not going to get the full marks. The honey and oat bar has a higher energy count, which is good for Colm as he's an active teenager, which needs a good source of energy. So this is the level of detail they're looking. This is how you're getting the full marks. Now, if you needed to write extra information, you'd put little asterisks or something there and you say, look, I've written extra information on whatever page 18. Now I've also done up the answer here for the apple and raisin bar, okay? So this will be on the page 18 part. Now you only have to answer one, but I'm just doing this so you can see the level of detail. So the apple and raisin bar has a lower amount of saturated fat, which means that it is good for Colm's heart. Colm might be a vegan as there is a vegan and vegetarian logo on the label, which means it could be suitable for and healthy for an active teenager. The apple and raisin bar has a high amount of carbs, which means that it would provide Colm with more energy and heat, which is required for an active teenager. Okay, so you can see the level of detail which is required. So this is why it is super important that you highlight the key information in the question and you know the action verbs. So this is 2023 exam. And this is a sample answer, okay, so it's all just my own views, okay. So question 13b, part I, plan a healthy packed lunch suitable for a teenager going on a hill walk. What am I highlighting? Plan, okay. I know that I'm going to have to do out a menu, okay. It has to be healthy and it's a lunch, okay. So last year 2022 was breakfast. This one is a lunch, okay. So it's going to be slightly different foods, and I know that it is suitable for a teenager. So they've been super nice here, and they've actually have the little scroll there, so you just need to fill it in, okay. So I've written down tuna and sweet corn wholemeal brown bread sandwich with a bottle of water, because I thought that would be handy enough to eat when he's out and about. I've put my stars to differentiate between my courses. I've gone with a low-fat yogurt with berry compote and granola, and I've distinguished again between my courses with my my stars. Okay, I've gone with a mixed fruit smoothie made with super milk. Now, you need to make sure that this is a balanced meal. So what you can do is draw out the 6 shelves of the food pyramid, okay? So I'm ticking off here. I have fruit and veg there, all right? So I have sweet corn, I have berries, and I have more mixed fruit there. So that's 3. Carbs, what do I have? I have wholemeal brown bread and I have granola. My dairy, I'm have low-fat yogurt and I have super milk. Protein, I'm getting that from my tuna. I don't have fats and oils, and I don't have, highly processed, sugary, sweety foods. Okay, so you could draw out something like that beside your answer just to help you, to guide you when you are doing this. So the next part here, again, these are all my own views. Part 2, describe 3 meal planning guidelines you follow in planning the packed lunch for the teenager. So I'm highlighting describe. I'm going to have to give information here. I'm state and explain an example. 3 meal planning guidelines. So again, in this question, they've given you the space for the 3. And it has to be talking about this answer. I can't start talking about why I chose to give them vegetable soup on a hill walk. If that's not what I've written down here. Okay, so I'm going to use what I have planned for him in his packed lunch meal to talk about here. So here's my first sample answer. I chose a lunch high in carbohydrates by choosing wholemeal bread and granola, which are both high in fibre and necessary for digestion. The granola is made from oats, which slowly release energy, which is needed on a walk. So this is the amount of information. I chose a lunch which contained fruit, berry compote, and a fruit smoothie and sweet corn vegetables to provide a good source of many vitamins and minerals required for good health and well-being. Number 3, I chose tuna, which is a HBV, high biological value protein required for growth and repair. It also contains iron to prevent anemia and omega-3 for a healthy brain. So you can see the amount of information which is going to be required here to get full marks. So I'm stating and explaining and then giving an example. So feel free to pause this and read through it again by yourself. So 2022, here's one here which is very easily answered wrong, even though at first glance it looks like a super easy question, okay? But I have seen my own students even answer this incorrectly by accident. So the first thing here, question 13b, sunny weather is expected for the holidays. Sunshine is a source of vitamin D, okay? Part I, recommend 2 food sources of vitamin D. So recommend, I'm just writing short and sweet, 2 food sources of vitamin D. So it's a food source. So therefore, I can only write down here like milk, dairy product, cod liver oil, oily fish, eggs, tinned fish, margarine, fortified breakfast cereals. I can't write down sun, okay, because it is not a food source. And I've seen so many people do that in like, when I use this as like a summer exam question. Yeah, and yes, technically, sun is a source of vitamin D, but in this question they're looking for food sources, so you need to make sure you're highlighting the key information. Next one, state a function and deficiency. Okay, so it's just going to be short and sweet, and there's 2 parts to the question because there's an and. So function, you could say strong bones and teeth. Deficiency, you could say osteoporosis, which is when you have brittle bones, or any one of the others there. So the next one here, we're looking at 2023 exam question, and again, these are all my own views. Okay, these are sample answers. So question 7, 80% of all heart disease is preventable. Okay, that's from healthcare.ie. Recommend 3 guidelines to follow to prevent coronary heart disease, so CHD. So recommend, okay, is my action verb. Guidelines, again, in this question they'll have left 3 bullet points, and I know I'm trying to stop coronary heart disease, okay? So you could say trim excess fat from meat. Now you need to be able to give examples. So say, for example, pork chops. Cut down on red meat, as these are high in saturated fat and cholesterol. You grill, steam, bake or microwave instead of frying to prevent adding extra saturated fat to the meal. You should eat 5 to 7 portions of fruit and vegetables daily, as they're full of antioxidants, many vitamins and minerals, which are required for general health and well-being. So this is another sample answer based on the 2023 questions. These are all my own views. Question 11. Discuss 2 rights consumers have when shopping for electrical appliances for the home. Okay, so I'm going to highlight discuss, meaning I'm going to have to explain an example because it's part of a more detailed action verb. I need to write 2 points on the rights of consumers when they're shopping. Alright, so the right to safety, and because it's also to do with electrical appliances, so I should have highlighted that part as well. So right to safety, all consumers have a right to know that the product will not harm their health. or put their lives at risk. So for example, if you're buying electrical goods, you need to make sure that, you know, they're safe. They have, you know, the stickers on them to say that they, the safety symbols stickers to say that, you know, they're safe and tested, and that they're double insulated. So double insulation is when you have the two squares inside each other. It's usually found on, you know, electrical appliances. So therefore it indicates that yes, you've read the question because you're talking about electrical appliances. You'd also say the right to redress. Okay, so if a fault occurs after buying the product, it won't turn on. The consumer is entitled to a refund, repair, replacement. You can't just say redress. You have to also say after it refund, repair, or replacement. This is the type of detail I think that they would be asking in these type of questions. Here's again sample answer. So question 13, the strap of a new bag broke during a walk. So I've highlighted strap, new bag, broke. Okay, so I know that it's fallen off. Discuss 2 forms of redress you were entitled to when returning the bag to the shop you bought it. So I'm highlighting discuss because I know that this is going to be more detailed. I'm going to have to state a redress. I'm going to have to explain it and give an example. Okay. So you're entitled to a full refund, e.g. if you spend €20 on the bag, you are entitled to the full amount back once you provided your receipt as evidence of purchase. It is returned on time as the bag is not of merchantable quality under the Sale of Goods and Supply Services Act 1980. Okay, you're entitled to a repair of the strap for free. So this is the type of detail you would be looking for. So these again are more questions with a mixture of action verbs, and it is super important to highlight the keywords. So this is from a sample paper from the SEC. So these are, I've given sample answers because there was not a marking scheme. So question 6, pasta dishes full of vegetables can be a healthy meal. Part A, describe how to modify this nutritionally balanced dish to suit a family member who is celiac. So I'm highlighting describe as my action verb, which means I'm going to have to state, explain, example. I've highlighted modify because I know I'm going to have to change this recipe above. And I know that it has to be for celiac. So I know that a celiac can't digest gluten. So if I have a look through the list of ingredients, vegetable oil is fine, onions fine, peppers fine, chickpeas are good, garlic's good, tomatoes good, veggie cheese is good, penne pasta. Celiac can't have regular pasta, so therefore I'm going to go with gluten-free pasta, and that would be suited there. Part B of this, name one other special diet that a roasted vegetable pasta dish would suit. Give a reason for your answer. So I know my action verb is going to be name, and I'm going to have to say special diet. But I can't talk about the celiac because it says one other. There's also a second part to this question where I have to back up my reason. So I decided to go with vegetarian. My reason is there's no meat in the dish. Okay, so when you look at the list of ingredients, as it contains vegetables including onions, peppers, chickpeas, garlic and tomatoes, the dish also contains vegetarian cheese instead of regular dairy cheese. So this amount of detail I would expect in a question like this. This one here is from the 2023 question 11, and this is a sample answer based on my own views. Okay, so if I have a look here, it says the Miller family have asked for your help in choosing a suitable refrigerator. So refrigerator A, and it says A+, refrigerator B, and A++. So if I was answering this question, I would be highlighting or circling the differences on each. Okay, it's like your plan of action again. So using the information provided on the labels shown above, B part 2, recommend one fridge. So I've highlighted recommend because I know I'm just going to have to write one answer, and it's going to be one of the fridges. Okay, now before I fill in that, I need to read part 2. Justify 2 reasons for your choice. And again, they've given you 2 spaces, so you know there's going to be 2. Justify means I'm going to have to back up my reason. Why did I choose fridge B? So I'm going to state, explain, example. So I would have gone back here and I would have highlighted the key information to figure out which one is better. So these are my sample answers, okay? So refrigerator B has a higher energy rating of A++, meaning it will be more efficient and use less electricity, 250 kilowatt per annum. Now, all this information has all come from here. I have never studied this label in class or anything like that. If I was a student, it is just, like you learn labels in class, but it's not, what I'm trying to say is that it's not something you'll have learned off by heart. Okay, this will be the first time you'll have seen this when you're doing your exam. So this is why you highlight the key information. Refrigerator B is quieter at 32 decibels, thus there won't be as much noise pollution and less irritating for the owner. So this is my sample answers. So you should pause there to check the amount of detail required. So the next question is from 2022, okay, and it is from question 13D. There is many different action verbs within the one question, okay, which means that it is a bit of a trickier question because it's really looking for the student's attention, okay. It's looking to see, can you actually achieve the detail? Okay, so D part A, it says label, sketch and describe how you would upcycle a white cotton t-shirt for use on the family holiday. Include references to colours and stitches in your answer. So first thing, there's 3 action verbs: label, sketch and describe. So sketch meaning I'm going to have to draw out. Label, I'm going to have to label what I've drawn out, and describe, I'm going to have to explain what I've drawn out, and I'm going to have to state, explain an example, okay? Now, they're not looking for masterpieces here. As you can see, I'm not the best at drawing, but as long as the examiner can sort of make it out, you're going to be fine, okay? So I have highlighted my 3 action verbs. I know that there's going to be quite a lot of detail in this answer. I'm going to have to upcycle. So upcycle means to, change something into something else. It's a white cotton t-shirt on a family holiday. So I'm going to have to make it, maybe suited to a holiday. So it could be bright colours. And they also want me in my answer where I'm describing to talk about the colours and the stitches. So that's super important. So already I'm looking for 5 different things in this. So I'm label, sketch, describe, colours and stitches. So I've decided to go a crop top, so I've removed the arms. I have yellow sequins on my son. I've a chain stitch using yellow embroidery thread. So in my description, I've said I'd remove both arms using a scissors and turn the t-shirt into a crop top so it is cooler for the hot weather. I would stitch on yellow sequins in a circle to represent the sun. I would embroider the sun's rays using a chain stitch with orange embroidery thread. So this is the level of detail which they'd be looking for. And you 100% have to label and sketch it all. Okay, so this be the level of detail. So make sure to check out our ExamRevision website, Junior Cycle Home Ec, where you can access all of Strand 1, 2 and 3. You can look at video tutorials, self-correcting quizzes, which are fantastic because you can keep going over them. My students love using them. We have the presentations from all of the chapters within the Junior Cycle Home Ec curriculum. We have Exam Builder with past exam questions. We have resource packs, and you can essentially keep track of your progress as well, which is fantastic. So if you go to the ExamRevision website, this is what the Home Ec section looks like. So we've Strand 1, Strand 2 and Strand 3, and when you click into it, so say if I clicked into Strand 1, this is what I get, or obesity and dental disease. I get a video of me basically teaching it in under 10 minutes of the PowerPoint, which is here, that you would have access to, self-correcting quizzes, and you'd have your resource pack, and then exam questions which you can select and build, and you can test yourself, and then you can go back and correct them with the marking scheme. And make sure to follow us on our social media. So we're on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook and YouTube. Make sure to check out all of our past YouTube videos. We've lots on all of our different subjects. There's plenty of Junior Cycle Home Ec ones there, so make sure to check them out. And thank you for coming to today's Saturday session.